All right, diving into NTPC Green Energy Limited's IPO. And let me tell you, those prospectuses and financial statements, they're something else. But hey, no worries. That's why we're here, right?
Uh,
In this deep dive, we're gonna sift through all those documents. We've got the draft Red Herring Prospectus and the final one too. And the goal is to help you figure out if this IPO is actually worth your investment.
yeah, it's like, panning for gold. There's
Yeah.
definitely some valuable info in these documents, but
Yeah.
you got to know, like, where to look.
Exactly. And one thing that kind of jumped out at me right away, they've got over 14,000 megawatts in renewable energy projects. That's operating, contracted, awarded. I mean, we're talking enough to power a small country. It's crazy.
It is. It is impressive, yeah. And it really speaks to their ambitions. India's renewable energy sector is, well, it's booming right now. And NTPC Green Energy Limited, or NGL as we'll call them, they're aiming to be, a major player. But to really understand their potential, we got to start with, well, their origins.
Why? So NGL, they're all about green energy, right? Solar, wind, the whole shebang. And they're a subsidiary of NTPC Limited, one of India's biggest power companies. So, I mean, that connection, that's got to be a huge advantage.
No, absolutely. NTPC Limited, they're a powerhouse in the Indian energy sector.
Mm.
And before this IPO, they fully owned NGL. So that kind of backing, it provides instant credibility,
Yeah.
and access to resources. It's something potential investors are definitely going to be looking at. Yeah.
Okay, so strong parentage, that's for sure. But NGL, they're relatively new on the scene, right?
Yeah.
Incorporated in April 2022. So have they had enough time to build a solid foundation?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? But they've been busy, that's for sure. Their portfolio projects, it's grown rapidly.
Mhm.
And their financials, they reflect that. In fiscal year 2024, their revenue, it jumped by over 35%. That's well above the industry average. It's usually like 15-20%. Now that brings their total revenue to almost 20 billion.
Wow, so that's some serious growth. Their profits, they must be soaring too, right?
They are up, yes.
Mm.
But there's another piece of the puzzle here. We got to look closer at their debt. As of September 2024, they're carrying over 25 billion in borrowings. Now they've used debt to fuel their rapid expansion, but investors need to understand how that debt is structured, and what the repayment plan actually looks like. Some debt can be, good, especially if it's used to finance growth, but
Like, true.
too much can become a burden.
So their debt management strategy, it's definitely something investors should scrutinize. Now let's talk about this IPO. They're not just looking to reward existing shareholders, are they?
No, no, this IPO, it's all about raising capital to
Yep.
fuel, even more growth. They've got a clear plan laid out in the prospectus. The funds are going to be invested in their wholly owned subsidiary, NTPC Renewable Energy Limited,
Yeah.
specifically to repay or prepay outstanding borrowings.
Interesting. So they're using this IPO to kind of manage their debt, but also to expand their renewable energy footprint at the same time. That's a pretty strong signal about their commitment to growth, wouldn't you say?
Exactly. But as with any investment, there are risks. One that really stands out to me is their geographical concentration. A lot of their projects are located in Rajasthan, India. So what happens, let's say, if a monsoon season is weaker than expected? How resilient are their solar energy operations to, those kind of weather fluctuations?
Right, relying heavily on one region, that can be risky. And we know the monsoon season, it can be unpredictable. But isn't India really pushing for renewable energy right now? Wouldn't that create huge opportunities for a company like NGL?
Oh, absolutely. They're all in on renewable energy. They set some aggressive targets, aiming for 500 gigawatts of renewable energy capacity by 2030.
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of government support, it makes this market incredibly attractive. But it's not without its challenges.
What kind of challenges are you seeing?
Well, for one, they rely heavily on power purchase agreements, or PPAs, with their off-takers. These agreements, they guarantee that someone will buy the power they generate, which it's great for stability, but what happens, let's say, if those off-takers run into financial trouble?
Or what if there's a dispute over the PPA terms that could disrupt their revenue stream?
It's a valid concern, yeah. So potential investors, they should really look into the details of those PPAs. What are the terms? How are defaults handled? And how diversified are their off-takers? We need to know if they're overly reliant on just a few buyers.
So it's not just about how much power they can generate, but also the stability and reliability of their buyers. It seems like there's a lot to unpack here.
There is. And to fully understand NGL's potential, we need to consider not just their financials, but also their management team, their track record, and their commitment to sustainability. So let's dive into those aspects in our next segment. So welcome back. We covered a lot of ground already, but there's still more to uncover about NTPC Green Energy Limited. One thing that really struck me when I was reviewing their documents is their emphasis on sustainability. It's like baked into their DNA.
Yeah, I noticed that too. It's not just about,
Yes.
generating renewable energy. It's about the how. They seem to be taking a very holistic approach.
Exactly. They've even established a dedicated corporate social responsibility committee, or CSR, and their initiatives they're quite impressive. They're involved in promoting education and healthcare.
Yeah.
Even supporting skill development programs in the communities near their project.
That's fantastic. It suggests that they're committed to being a responsible corporate citizen, not just, focused on profits. It's something I'm sure a lot of ethically minded investors will appreciate. But let's not forget, a company is only as good as its leadership, right? What can you tell us about NGL's management team?
Well, they've assembled a strong team with a wealth of experience, many of whom have, a long history in the Indian energy sector. And this is where that connection to NTPC Limited, it really pays off. They can tap into their parent companies. Vast pool of talent and expertise.
So they're not just relying on a few individuals. They've got the backing of an entire institution. That's got to be reassuring for investors.
Yeah.
But a seasoned management team, it doesn't guarantee success, right? What about their track record? Have they delivered on their promises so far?
Well, remember, they've only been operating for a couple of years. But in that short time, they've managed to secure a significant number of projects. And their revenue growth, it's been remarkable, as we discussed earlier.
True, but revenue is only part of the story, right?
Yeah.
What about their operational efficiency? Can they keep costs under control?
Yeah.
And get the most out of their assets?
Yeah.
That's crucial for, long-term profitability.
Oh, absolutely. One way to gauge that is by looking at their plant load factor, which essentially it measures how much electricity their plants generate compared to their maximum capacity. Think of it like a car's fuel efficiency.
Yeah.
A higher plant load factor means they're squeezing more power out of their assets, which is a good indicator of efficiency.
So a higher plant load factor means they're running a lean and mean operation. What do their numbers look like in that department?
Well, based on the information in their prospectus, their plant load factors, they appear quite healthy. It suggests that they're operating efficiently.
Yeah.
Which, it bodes well for their future performance.
Yeah.
But we can't get ahead of ourselves, even with, a solid management team, a good track record, and efficient operations. This is still an IPO. That comes with inherent risks and uncertainties.
You're right. We can't ignore the fact that once those shares hit the stock exchange, their price, it's going to be influenced by all sorts of external factors.
Exactly. Things like overall market sentiment, investor appetite for renewable energy stocks, even global economic conditions. Those are all out of NGL's control.
So even if they execute their plans perfectly, their share price could still, take a hit if the market takes a downturn. That's a sobering thought. It seems like investing in an IPO is it's not for the faint of heart.
It certainly requires a healthy understanding of the risks involved. That's why diversification is so important for any investor. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, as they say. Speaking of factors beyond their control, we haven't talked about the regulatory landscape.
Oh, right. The renewable energy sector in India, it's heavily regulated. Any changes in those regulations they could have a significant impact on NGL's business.
It's a critical point. How adaptable is NGL? Can they navigate those regulatory shifts and stay ahead of the curve?
That's where I think their experience and the support of NTPC Limited, it really comes into play. They've got a lot of institutional knowledge to draw on. It could be, invaluable in dealing with a complex regulatory environment.
I agree. It's like having a seasoned guide to help them navigate the twists and turns of the Indian regulatory system.
Well,
We've covered a lot of ground in this part of our deep dive. We've explored NGL's commitment to sustainability, their management team, their track record.
Yeah.
And it even touched on the regulatory complexities. And let's not forget those inherent IPO risks. But there's one more crucial piece of the puzzle we need to examine. The bigger picture, how does India's ambitious renewable energy agenda shape NGL's future? We'll delve into that in our final segment. Okay, so we've explored NTPC Green Energy Limited kind of from the inside out, right?
Oh.
Their financials, their management, that commitment to sustainability they've got. But now I think it's time to kind of zoom out a bit, see where they fit in, within India's larger energy landscape. It's like looking at a single tree and then stepping back to see like the whole forest. You know what I mean? Yeah, I like that. That's a great analogy. NGL, they're operating within a market that's, well, it's dynamic. It's rapidly evolving. India is going through a real energy transformation right now. And renewable energy, it's at the forefront.
We touched on India's ambitious renewable energy targets earlier, but can you give us a sense of like just how big this shift actually is?
They're aiming for 500 gigawatts of renewable energy capacity by 2030. Now, to put that in perspective, that's more than double their current total energy capacity from all sources.
Wow, that's a monumental goal. So what's driving this massive push for green energy in India?
It's a few things, really. Climate change is a major concern, obviously. And India, they're particularly vulnerable to its effects. They're also, seeking energy independence, reducing their reliance on those fossil fuel imports.
So it's about securing a cleaner, more sustainable future, but also boosting their energy security at the same time.
Right. Precisely.
Yeah.
And let's not forget the economic benefits here. The renewable energy sector, it's a hotbed for job creation, attracting both domestic and foreign investment. It's a win-win for the environment and the economy.
It sounds like the perfect environment for a company like NGL to thrive, right? Huge demand, government support, a market that's just ripe with potential.
There's no doubt that NGL is well positioned to benefit from this growth, but it's a very competitive landscape. There are a lot of companies, vying for a slice of that renewable energy pie.
So what sets NGL apart in this crowded market? What's their secret sauce?
Well, as we've discussed, their parentage is a major asset. Having that backing of NTPC Limited, it provides financial stability, technical know-how, a proven track record. It's like having a strong, experienced mentor, guiding them along the way.
That's a significant advantage, especially in a market as complex and as competitive as India's. But they're not just, coasting on their parent company's reputation, are they?
No, they're making some smart moves on their own. They're focused on diversifying their portfolio, moving beyond just solar and wind. That's a smart strategy.
Yeah.
They're exploring areas like battery storage, green hydrogen production, both of which have, enormous growth potential.
It's like they're not just, riding the current wave of renewable energy. They're looking ahead, kind of anticipating the next big wave.
Exactly. They're positioning themselves as a forward-thinking player in this evolving market.
So for someone listening to this deep dive, trying to decide whether or not to invest in this IPO, what's the key takeaway here?
I'd say it's crucial to look beyond just the immediate financials, and understand the bigger picture. NGL is operating within a market that has massive growth potential. They have a strong foundation thanks to their parent company,
right?
A solid track record, and a forward-looking strategy. But remember, with any investment, there are risks.
And we've covered those risks in detail: debt levels, geographical concentration, reliance on those PPAs, the inherent volatility of the stock market. It's a lot to consider, but that's the nature of informed investing, isn't it?
It is. We've tried to provide you with the knowledge and the insights, to help you make an educated decision. Ultimately, the choice is yours, but hopefully this deep dive has equipped you to make that choice with confidence.
We've certainly covered a lot of ground today, from dissecting NGL's financials to exploring India's ambitious renewable energy goals. It's been a fascinating journey.
It has, and it underscores a crucial point, I think. The success of companies like NGL, it's not just about, profit margins and share prices. It's about contributing to a more sustainable future, and that's something worth reflecting on.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep seeking knowledge.